So Edward's not here.
Not yet.
So I guess, do you want to do his thing, or you want me to do it this time?
You do it, Rod. I need to learn from the best because I'm always like, what time is an illusion? I have no idea. What day is
Yeah.
today? What,
Well,
what
that
time
would
is it?
the best would be Edward, but let
I
me give
know
it
that's
a
what I'm talking
let me
about.
wing
I
it.
want, in the
Yeah.
absence of the best, you are the next best. You are the
I'm
next best alternative.
definitely fourth or fifth on the list. Yeah. So recorded. Sorry. See, I even messed it up. I started off poorly to begin with.
Mulligan. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. Mulligan. Here we go. Clearing the throat. Recorded November 18th, 2024. Good day, Ray. Good day, Ray. How are you?
Oh my goodness. Good day back at you, Rod. I am doing fabulously well. I'm in the wonderful city of Chicago. Pre-day for Ignite. I saw some incredible tech checks, lab sessions. Somebody named Rod. I don't know. It was pretty spectacular. We got Morton and Henrik there. I'm gonna give them a shout out, and Kathleen, your collaborator. So I'm excited to be able to engage in that session, participate if they let me in with my badge. But we'll we'll see. We'll see what we can do.
So here's the funny thing, because we do have live show participants. We also do have the listeners who also watch the podcast. I'm going to recommend that the listeners just literally come back and watch this a little bit later, watch the replay, because this is the cool thing. I don't know where Ray could be. Oh, there she is. We're actually together for the
We're
show.
stalking Rod is really I'm just like
Yeah.
I'm there, I'm here. Rod, where are you? Don't even tell me, I'm right there. I
We,
see
we,
you.
we also have we also have a
This
friend of
is
the
my
show.
partner. He's proud he's getting claimed today. He's
Oh,
got unclaimed.
yeah,
Now he's claimed.
yeah, um, yeah. So it's been an interesting day, to tell you the truth, because it's been busy, I would say, because most people are arriving today in Chicago and checking in, getting their badges. That was pretty hectic a little bit earlier, I think, but I think that things are kind of starting to kind of settle a little bit. Tomorrow is going to be the big day. Today was pre-day. There was a few pre-day labs, an AI red team that was helping out with a little bit earlier. Today's a lot of the prep. As Ray mentioned, we're prepping for some workshops and some sessions for the rest of the week. Um, but today's really kind of quiet, right? Compared to what I think tomorrow is going to be, because we have roughly 10,000 people here in Chicago this week, which was what, double of what we had last year for Ignite in Seattle. So we're always continuing to grow the event. And if I do have some super secret knowledge about potentially what that's going to look like next year, but maybe we'll talk about that on the next show after
Ooh,
I'll allow the people
little
here at Ignite
teaser.
to make those announcements instead of me doing it, and then they'll just hate me and they're like, why did you give it away? But anyway, this is going to be great. This place, I have to admit, is huge, right? And we are literally just in the west wing of McCormick Center. It has a north, a south, and an
Oh my
east.
goodness.
Yeah, and my ride last night, I took a lift from the hotel over here to get my badge early, and the driver dropped me off I don't know where. And I literally walked around for 20 minutes to find this place, because she dropped me off like on South or something. I don't know. It's probably my fault. I'm not going to blame her. But at the same time, the lift that I took last night, I tried to get one of if you know how Lyft works, right? You can choose like the certain levels of Lyft based on the price, and then one's better than the other. Yesterday, I tried to save some money because we're limited on travel budget here in Chicago.
Rod.
I tried to get one of the smaller lifts, and oh my goodness, it felt like I was in a crime scene riding
Oh
in the
my,
back seat.
did
Yeah.
did you do like the carpool lift option?
No, there was no one else sitting next to me.
So what
Yeah.
made so what you were in a crime scene of a vehicle? I don't understand.
I have pictures. Maybe I'll share those a little later
What
if I can pull them
pictures
up.
did
But
you please do? I want a PowerPoint. I want a deck
yeah,
of what your
well, there's
experience.
literally like a tarp across the back seat that I was sitting in. I'm thinking, what is under this tarp? And then in the back seat was everything back there was like ripped up, and I thought, oh my goodness, what happened in this car? Do I really want to know? I probably
Was that
would
your
like
actual like, were you supposed to get in that automobile, or was this just you
to-
randomly found yourself? Like, you're like,
maybe
"Hey,
it was just a random car. I knocked on the
hitchhiking,"
window. I
at
said,
that
hey, would you
point.
like me to take me to McCormick Place? She said,
See,
sure, I'll give you a lift.
I feel like,
Ah,
this is
yeah,
very Rod of you. I feel like you're just
yeah.
a congenial guy,
Well,
charismatic, you know?
I just like to make friends. Yeah.
I know.
I have so few. I just have to make friends whenever I can. So yeah. So what about your day to day, Ray? What have you done? I know you're in the tech check with me for the lab, but what else have you done today?
What
Really?
putting me on the spot. Let's
Yeah.
see. I've checked in with work. I so we had our Defender Experts public webinar, our first episode, our inaugural episode last week, where it was essentially like an anti-sales experience, if you will, because it was just highlighting the hunters, the analysts, the threat researchers that comprise Defender Experts, and really putting the spotlight on all of their technical chops and the emergent threats and the experiences that they've had that they're particularly passionate about. So really emphasizing the knowledge share. So I'm playing catch up with all of the aftermath of that. It was a great turnout. We had a pretty significant participation ratio, and then folks have reached out and they're asking about episode 2, and we want to be able to it's great, right? Because you're a victim of your success at this point. Right? So we did title it episode 1, but that was more tongue-in-cheek. Like, it was, I'm a Star Trek, like that's how I grew up, and that's how I bonded with my father, who's emotionally unavailable. But I, we gave a little Star Wars. I was like episode 1, and now people are like, naturally, episode 2. When is that? What topics are you going to cover? Really love the first one. Here's a list of things we'd like to do a deep dive on, but we want to build on it with our partner ecosystem. So we're going to noodle on it with some of our partners, and that's exciting stuff. And so again, when you put on a massive event like this, it's not just the event and the planning to make sure it goes smoothly. It's all connecting the dots and making sure that the constellation shines bright with all of the immense follow-up. So that's what I've really been working on and focusing my energies on. So exciting stuff, exciting but important, and looking forward to episode 2, because apparently that's what we did by naming it episode 1. We now will have to have an episode 2, so more to come there.
That's actually pretty cool. I'm glad you filled us in on that because I was kind of wondering how that went because we did promote that. I mean,
We did.
you have to, yeah, I like to know if that promotion is actually effective sometimes. But I have to
It's
tell you, Ray, and I hope you're not offended, but having you straight across from me, usually it's just on camera, but it's distracting a little bit to have you. Anyway, it's
why
cool, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, because I have you here and I have you here. It's like, what is
this
going
is
on?
how my partner feels. He's like, having you is just so distracting. I can't. I'm so overwhelmed. I
Yeah.
overwhelm people. That's what I do. But that's okay. It's a big
That's a
personality.
skill. Yeah, that's a
It's
skill. You can put that on a LinkedIn profile. I overwhelm people. Please hire me. Um, so we are about quarter after. We should probably bring our guest. We actually do have a guest. We didn't last week, so I think most of our audience was probably like, "Oh, it's the Rod and Ray show again." But no, we do have a guest this week, and we would love to bring her on. I've kind of been excited about this, waiting for this since
yes.
we talked about this early on. I think it was a few months ago. The funny thing is that we have shows booked out so far usually we have scheduled someone like 6 months in advance and you're like, okay, who's up, and I'm like, oh, it's Jess this week. So welcome to the stage there, Jess. We have with
Yes.
us this evening or day,
Morning.
it's 8
I was
o'clock
going to
8
your
say,
a.m.
morning, 8
She
o'clock your
said
it's,
time.
8 a.m.
yeah, it's evening your time. As you can see, my Lego calendar is telling me it is the 19th. I'm in the future.
In the future. That's right. Time traveling extraordinaire. I love it.
So it's 8 a.m. tomorrow for us, I think, right? So
It
it's
is. It
tomorrow.
is.
Yeah.
Yep. Tuesday morning.
That's pretty cool. So So, what is in our future?
Well, at least for me, it's looking pretty rainy and miserable where I am. I am not lucky enough
Is
to
it?
be in
Oh,
Chicago. I am very
You
sad about that.
you might
But
as
I'm
well be in
aw.
Chicago. This is the weather here. So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty. It's not great. It's supposed to snow here on Wednesday. So yeah, supposed to get a good round of snow here Wednesday. And for where I'm from, near Cincinnati, Ohio, I guess it's supposed to kind of. And I'm sad about that because I love snow. I love snow at home, and
Mm,
I'm gonna
mm,
miss
mm,
it.
mm, mm,
But
mm,
anyway, you
No,
don't
no, no,
like
no,
snow,
no,
Jess?
no.
No.
So I'm born. For those who don't know, I am born and raised and live in Brisbane, Queensland, in Australia. Like for me, 30 degrees C, which I think is sort of around like your 90-ish
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you. Like that's my happy temperature. Like sitting in that area, that's where I'm happy. Anything sort of lower than like 20, and I'm cold. I'm wearing a hoodie. So or every time I come and visit the US, whenever I'm over in Seattle, I am freezing.
I was freezing in here earlier. It's a conference center, of course, so they lower the temperature just to keep everybody comfortable. And I have zero body fat, so I freeze like
Ron,
a
what
like a
is
popsicle.
See, I'm fine. I am festively plump, as they refer to it. We're coming into the
Yeah.
festive season. I'm fine.
Ron?
Did you like that? Hey, so anyway, Jess, let's start this way. We've not. We're sitting here, talking about Jess. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do for Microsoft, and what you currently do? Because I think originally when we scheduled you for the show, we were kind of focused on Microsoft Sentinel stuff, which we can still talk about. But I'm sure, as anyone at Microsoft, 6 months from now, we're all going to be doing something a little bit different, I think. So it's just the way things work. But what are you doing right now?
Always.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've been technically in the same role since I started. So I've been with Microsoft for about 5.5 years.
Yeah.
I was a PFE, so a Premier Field Engineer, that moved into a Customer Engineer, that moved into a Cloud Solution Architect Engineer, that is now a Cloud Solution Architect. Pretty much the way I describe, I do security and identity stuff for customers, and I help them use the stuff they've paid for. That's my job. So big customers have paid lots of money for their big licenses, and I come in and go, right, this is how you can actually use all that stuff and use it well. That's my job.
Well, and that's, I think, a super valuable job when you consider that I think most organizations don't use everything they have. And if they
No.
did, would they be better off?
They would. It would be lovely. It would be really nice to be able to go into a customer and see all of the defenders lit up rather than just one. But yeah, so most of my job kind of involves going into some of my customers and looking and going, you're paying all this money, why aren't you using it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a lot of fun though, because I really do like being able to help them, and you kind of get those aha moments when they're like, wait, we're licensed for that.
Um, well, and that kind of brings up an interesting question. Is there kind of a common theme for most of these customers that you work with? Is there a common set of defenders that they don't implement first, or is there
Yes.
something they do implement
Yes.
first and then they kind of forget about the other stuff?
Turn on MDE, turn on nothing
Yep.
else.
Yep.
Really?
That's it. That's the way it works.
Yep.
And that seems to be everywhere. And I'm very big on MDI. So I'm an MDI evangelist. I love MDI, and I've spoken with the Dart folks. So one of the questions that I actually asked them, like, I love you people. You people are amazing humans. But what can I do so that my customers never need to see your faces?
Mm-hmm.
You're lovely. I'm sure you're awesome people, but I don't want my customers to ever need you.
And who is DART? Who is DART for folks that maybe don't know?
The acronym.
No, detection and response team.
Detection and response
yes,
team.
Yes, yeah. But they're the folks that you never want to get a call from, right?
No, they're it's great that you know they exist, but then at the same time, if you know they exist, something's gone horrendously wrong. So I actually asked them, I said, what were the big things that my customers can do? Give me 3 things. And number 1 on their list was turn on Defender for Identity.
Oof.
Like that to me is a no-brainer. And so I think a lot of organizations, they're all in on the shiny, they're all in on the cloud, and cloud is awesome, and they forget their big on-prem footprint. and kind of just pretend it doesn't exist. It's like ostriching. You just kind of bury your head in the sand and go, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. And so they're not really doing a very good job of looking after that. So MDI, huge. If I could plug one thing, turn on Defender for Identity. Get that in your environments. Get it on all your domain controllers. That will make me very happy.
So here's one of the things that I've always thought and considered. Tell me if I'm stupid or wrong, or both. If you don't have identity secured or under control, you literally have no security. So why would they turn on MDE first? What's the thinking there, I guess? Because most IT folks are kind of focused on the endpoints. Is that the way that it works?
I think that's it. It's very much focused on that endpoint piece and trying to get your workstations. And I think they are, like, the two are tied quite closely together. So when you talk about like zero trust, and I'm very tired of talking zero trust, but that's what we do. We talk zero trust. That's the beginning point. So right at the very beginning, you've got your identities and your devices. So everyone's really big on the devices, really big on making sure their devices are secure. Kind of forget the identity.
When we talk about zero trust, that's literally the first pillar is identity, right? So it's like, seems like you're almost stepping over it for some reason.
No, they do but they do cloud identity. They forget about the on-prem stuff. That's the problem.
I got it. Okay. That is interesting. So
can I say it for you? I'm looking in the comments. Joseph, identity is the new security perimeter. It's true. And I hate saying it in every single engagement that I have with my customers, but I do say it because if people don't secure their identities, they're not doing a very good job of security.
I would absolutely agree with that. And that's something I think people need to hear. I don't care how many times it's said. I think there should probably be more sessions or more training or whatever just to get that across.
Well, what do you think is the disconnect, Jess? Do you feel like it's just resourcing internally at the org level that they can't necessarily apply? Because they want to be as secure as possible, right? And granted, I've been on the other side of the customer equation. I understand the nuances within ecosystems, and you have very important people that have very bespoke policies associated with their.
I would also say, if you've been on the other side as well, the idea of putting yet another agent on a domain controller as an identity administrator, I'm like, oh, not again. So I think there is a little bit of that. I do think a lot of it comes down to, and I spoke about this in one of my LinkedIn posts recently, it's the bums on seats problem. So it's we don't have enough people, so we have to ruthlessly prioritize the bits that we're focusing on. And I think it just gets missed. So a lot of the customers that I work with, because of my background, so I previously worked for government here in Australia. So I do a lot of work with government folks across Australia. And so they suffer greatly from the bums on seats problem. They do not have enough people to do everything they need to do. They are constantly fighting fires. So the proactive sometimes just doesn't happen because they don't have that many hours in the day.
Absolutely.
So I think it's interesting to kind of bring up too, because you mentioned, hey, I mentioned that during some of my LinkedIn posts within the last month. You kind of put together a whole series, like it was for Cyber Month, and it was
Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Yeah. Just on the spur, I went on the 1st of October. I'm like, I'm going to do this on the 1st of October. And then I went, oh, crap, now I have to do this every day for the whole month.
Yeah.
And I did miss a couple of days, but I did catch up. So there was a couple of days where I had double posts and I was very apologetic.
But that showed the real life. That's what it is to be a cyber practitioner, right? Like you are actually doing the good work. And this is your +1, your stretch initiative to make sure that there's awareness and understanding.
Yeah. So I grabbed a whole bunch of little things that I've talked about. So there was stuff that I've done a talk quite a number of times and for a number of years now, talking about security basics and getting security basics right and why we can't get that right. And so pulled a bunch from that, pulled a bunch from some of the work that I've been doing with some of my customers recently, pulled some things from a lot of the work that I've been doing with Sentinel and with Seams to talk a little bit about that. So it was kind of like a mish of all things security to try and give you at least something every day of this is what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you consolidate all of that
I did.
information that you
I
shared
did.
across the
I
month, or
did.
is it you did?
I
Yay!
did. I did. I put it together in one massive. So that was day 31 because I was feeling a bit lazy on day 31. It was
Oh,
Oh,
take a
Halloween.
look at
it was a
that.
good bookend. It was a good bookend.
Yeah.
Like this is it makes sense. And
Yes.
what's the
No, I've
TLDR? What is it? It's like the fundamentals and what people.
yeah, so the idea of this was very much around understanding what you've got, knowing how to protect it well, doing the basics right, but then a lot of it came down to people, and I think that's the part that we miss a lot in security. We're very focused on the tech. We talk about the tech, we love the tech, and that's great, but I would say only about 25 to 30% of what I do is tech. The
Mm.
other 65
Yes,
to
yeah.
70%, it's people, because
The-
they're the ones that are having to do all the stuff. They're the ones that are having to implement everything and be the defenders. And we don't spend a lot of time talking about them or helping them. So I think the biggest thing that came out of that, and that was my final day
Yeah.
post on day 30, was looking after your people and looking after yourself, because burnout is not fun, having been through it.
And
So
when
I
you say
tried.
the
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Nope.
See, we're
No
sitting
good.
right across from each other, but we're just like I'm like hanging on every word, Jess. So when you say the people, do you mean like the change management obstacle or challenge to implement the new tech and to facilitate adoption, or is it the people aspect to make sure that the folks that you have spearheading these initiatives have the bandwidth, both the technical acumen, but like the emotional bandwidth and cycles
It's
to
kind of a weird mixture. So
yeah.
a lot of people that I see, like, they want to do the right thing. Like the people that I'm
Yes.
talking to, they want to do the thing. Either they don't have enough time to do it, they don't have management support to do it, they don't have budget to do it. Budget seems to be a big thing.
Mm.
But also they're spread too thin. Like they're spread so thin you could see through them. So a lot of the folks that I deal with they're wearing too many hats. They're trying to do too much all at once, and that means that the stuff that they are doing, they can't do all of it well. They can do all of it, but they can't do all of it really, really well. And I think that's the big issue. The other one that I talk about, and I rant about it quite a lot because I come from that background. I worked in operations. I refer to myself very lovingly as a recovering sysadmin. I think I will always be a recovering
Yeah.
sysadmin. But I think our operations teams need to work better with security teams, because I think most of my job involves, and it feels like being a mum kind of prepared me for it, getting them in the meeting or the room together and just saying, play nicely and share
Yes.
your toys. You
Yes.
all work for
Mm.
the same organization. You all
Same
play on the
mission. Yeah.
same team. Can we
Yeah.
just play nicely with one another and stop fighting? Please? Please? That would be really nice. And I think that's part of the issue, because there's like a lot of political infighting, which to me just seems
Yeah.
daft. It defeats the purpose of security.
Well, I think a lot of times too, in addition to the political infighting, I think the budgets come from different places. So a lot of times,
Mm.
if you have a large organization, you have a security team, and you have, kind of IT pro or the end user management type and endpoints, because they're two different budgets. It's like, hey, I had the shiniest stuff. I had the coolest, shiniest stuff, and you can't have access to it. It almost, and I totally agree. That's just so wrong to be that way. But at the same time, it is separated by those budgets too. Who has more budget? Is it security? Is it, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of times the politics feeds it, but it's kind of the management that makes it happen, right? Makes kind of
Mm.
that separation happen as well.
And I think the budget thing to me is the biggest issue. And I'm hoping that some organizations are changing based on a lot of what they've seen probably in the last couple of years, that you can't scrimp on security. Like you can't just give a pittance and expect it will all be fine. You have to invest in it, or it will come back to bite you in the butt. There's no ways around that. And I think the issue that we see a lot is that security is treated as this cost sink. It's wasted money, when it really isn't. Like it's going to save you in the long run, because again, zero trust, it's not a matter of if, but when it's going to happen. What
Yeah.
have you done to make sure that the impact of that and the blast radius of that is as reduced as possible?
Well, another piece of that, it's not just the tools themselves or the software or the cool things, but it's also the training, at least from the customers that I talk to. A lot of times, security gets more training these days than everybody else because it's kind of more top of mind for a lot of these execs and stuff like that. It's egg on their face if they get compromised. So we're going to
Yeah.
train our people so that we don't get compromised, which doesn't really do anything, but at the same time, that's where the investment goes, right?
And I think that training is definitely really important, and it's a mixture of training for your security folks, but training of everyone in how to do it right as well. Because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, everyone's involved.
Mhm.
It's reporting those phishing emails and being aware of those really weird links and knowing what not to click on. That's really important. So the more education we get for people, the better off organizations and people in general are going to be. So I was really lucky. I actually got to go and speak at a conference, not last week, the week before. Definitely not my usual crowd. It was a bunch of small business owners that I got to speak to about what do they need to do to secure their small businesses. We're talking like 1 or 2 employees tops. And it was things like knowing how to spot phishing and scam emails, using MFA, having good backups. Like, they're not what I would consider to be really tricky things, that like they are the absolute basics, but we're still seeing people not doing them properly. And
Yeah.
I don't know why.
What can we do at Microsoft to help with that? I think I know we've made a lot of investments, right, in our Learn stuff and our Learn modules and things like that, but it seems like that's just not enough, or maybe people just aren't aware of them. Is there something else that we could do that you can think of?
I also think people are very fatigued by it. Like, there
Oh,
is a
yeah.
lot of fatigue over, we've been talking about this, I'm just fed up, I'm just tired. And I get that. I do. Um I think a lot of it comes down to, again, it's that ruthless prioritization. What is the most important stuff that we can do to protect ourselves, our business, our organization, that's going to have the biggest impact? And I think that doesn't happen. I think the shiny is what gets looked at. It's what is the shiniest, newest toy that we can play with, which is probably going to have minimal impact, versus what are some of the really basic things like MFA. Surely now everyone is using MFA everywhere. You would think everyone is using MFA everywhere. They are not.
No, they're
Rita,
not.
they are not.
Yeah. But may I ask, to your point, the shiny and the exciting gets a lot of play, but I imagine that part of your secret sauce is infusing what you would consider table stakes, or the most fundamental aspects of security. Like, I imagine that you imbue that with a bit of the Jess magic. But I'm wondering, what would you consider what are the ingredients to your magic? Because even just talking, I'm very like engaged, and I want to hear the next thought coming from you. I imagine part of your approach is probably taking something that is less exciting, or folks have been quite fatigued about, and then you try to flip it on its head. You're like, but you didn't cover this angle, and have you considered this other thing? Like, tell me a bit about your approach and how you get people to buy into it.
Humor tends to be the
Yeah.
big one. I use a lot of memes in all of
Yeah.
my talks, even with my customers. I use a lot of memes because I'm dealing with techs. These are most of the time I'm not dealing with CISOs and CIOs. I'm dealing with the people who are on the ground, who are having to do this stuff, who are really bored of having to do the basic stuff. And I'm wanting to try and make it fun and
Yeah.
funny and interesting. And so I think humor really helps. It also helps that I'm really passionate about it. I can't help but try and exude that. And I hope
Mhm.
that kind of comes across to the people that I'm dealing with. I get a sense whenever I'm dealing with people who kind of are a bit bored of it, that it kind of perks them up a little bit, that it's not just someone droning on at them and being really
Yeah.
bored about being able to turn all this stuff on. I try and make it exciting and interesting, because otherwise no one's going to pay attention. So you're right that there is kind of that enthusiasm, because if you don't have enthusiasm for it, no one else is going to have enthusiasm for it. So we've kind of got to bring them along for the ride.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think I'm sure you've heard this before. It sounds cheesy, but your energy is infectious. But you said it, you make it relatable. You make it relatable to the folks that you were talking to, and tried to inspire them to, they obviously went into the fields for a reason. They were inspired by the mission, and you tried to bring that shine and the magic back to. So you probably, I was a little jaded and cynical before I, progressed my career. When you're in the trenches for a good number of years, the day in, day out, and it's the bureaucracy, and you have to navigate it, and you're like, I just want to keep people safe, but now you have to do all this, the political dance, and things of that nature. It is tough. So you are probably a shining bright star and beacon, and they're like, oh goodness, just take Jess any day.
The other really big thing that I found that works really, really well, and particularly with a lot of the customers that I'm dealing with, is letting them know that they're not doing a bad job. Like, you're not doing bad. You're not doing awful. You're actually doing okay. Here's stuff you could be doing better, but it doesn't mean you're doing awful. And I think just hearing that they're doing okay, just hearing that from someone else is a real kind of bolster to them. Like, they actually feel, no, I am doing an okay job. And that, to me, is probably one of the big things that I've taken away. Letting the folks know that I'm dealing with, you are doing a good job. You are doing the stuff that needs doing in the way that it needs doing right now, because you don't have any other way of operating. That's why you've got me in here to help you work out what else you can be doing and how to do it better. That's fine. We all need help. That's okay.
Yeah. I like comedy myself. I appreciate the memes and stuff like that. People, I don't know. Sometimes I don't take anything serious. At least that's what people think. But
Who says that, wrong?
but that lends to the other topic I think we wanted to talk about a little bit. So there was your LinkedIn series, and thank you for that, Jess. I'll put that in the show notes. We posted that consolidated content that you have there for Cyber Month. The other thing is what I thought was super interesting, and I love this. If you go out to YouTube, there is Jess has a video, and we'll post that in the show notes as well. When it seems like you're doing it wrong, and the word "seems" is my favorite word of all time. Security Information Event Management System. What brought that on? Because I think I know, just based on our conversation already, that people are doing things okay, but maybe you could do things a little bit better. Is that where that came from too?
Yes. So, while identity is my background and I do a lot of work with identity, I kind of fell into Sentinel just as it went globally available and generally available. So 2019, November 2019 is when I started getting upskilled in Sentinel, and I've been working with Sentinel since then and helping customers turn it on and start using it well. So I've seen a lot of customers who are using it and not doing what I would consider to be best practice. So I wanted to write a talk that was, and I'm very careful when I write a lot of my conference talks, because I want to make them vendor neutral, because a lot of this stuff, it's not just applicable to Sentinel. The same thing's applicable in every other product in the SIEM space. But I wanted to make sure that people could take this knowledge elsewhere, because I know it's being done wrong in other places too, not just in the customers that I see in the Sentinel space. And I think a lot of the times it's we've set this thing up, we're just going to let it keep ticking. It's doing what we think it should be doing, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. And so when I go into a lot of those customers and take a look, there's a whole bunch of stuff that they weren't aware of that's changed in regards to best practice, new features that are often available to them that they can take advantage of, that they don't realize they could do better with. And so that's how the talk came about. It was I'm talking about this a lot. I need to talk about this in a wider, broader context to get this out to the masses, if only so I can stop seeing these things in a lot of my customers and actually see something more interesting, maybe.
Yeah. So if you were to consolidate that talk maybe into like the top 3, let's talk about what the top 3 things maybe that you see customers that they could, So we don't want to say customers doing it wrong, because that's bad and negative. We want to say what they could
be doing it better.
Yeah,
Areas of opportunity for them to
Areas of
shore up their practices.
Wow, that's even better, Ray. Nice job.
Just
The big one that I really love, and I have it as a sticker, and I thank Sarah Young very kindly for her sticker. Thank you very much, Sarah, because it lives pride of place on my laptop. I now have it. You can see on my little dashboard over in the corner. It's faded. I need to dust it off. Collection isn't detection.
okay.
So if we're collecting the data, we need to be doing something with it. There's no point collecting it if we're not actually going to be doing anything with it. If you're not going to be doing anything with it, don't store it in a seam. Like, that's a really costly, expensive storage. So making sure that the data you're getting hold of is stuff that you want to do something with. That's probably one of the big ones. And that kind of comes down to two different ones, which is either ingesting too much or not ingesting enough. Either you care or you don't. And that's the other thing that I've seen a lot. Like, a lot of people are like, no, I'm going to put a data cap in place. I've got a customer, no joke. They've got a data cap. They hit that data cap by 10 a.m. every morning.
Oh my goodness.
What's the point? Again, either you care or you don't. You're missing all of that data. So work out which bits of that you care about so you can get rid of that data cap. So yeah, I like that.
No, I love it. I feel like you've taken me to like having a religious experience here, and so
blew my mind. It blew my mind.
Do you have to? So a couple things. Like, so my friends and I would have a debate: is it sim or is it seam? And I've always been in the sim camp, but now I want to say seam, but just because of just now you've changed me, I've converted. So thank you, Jess, single-handedly. And now in terms of the messaging, do you have to soften it up to your audience, or do they like
sometimes?
Do they like
sometimes?
Because I would respond really well if you came in and you said either you care or you don't. I would be like, good. Well, just tell me what to care about, because I'm gonna anything you tell me to do, I now will feel like this is my mission in life.
I do sometimes soften it up. It depends on who I'm talking to. It's funny. I tend to soften it up with the low level text and tend to be really brutal if I'm dealing with management and CISOs, mainly because I think they need to hear the brutal, because they often don't. They don't have people below them telling them the truth.
Yeah.
So I will often just be really blunt with them and go, look, do you care about this data or do you not care about it? If you don't care about it, why are you getting hold of it? And if you do care about it, why aren't you collecting it properly? The other one that I often see as well, which is similar, which is using the wrong tools for the job. I often see them trying to like use a tool that they've got. It's that sunk cost fallacy of, I've got this thing, I've already been using it, I'm going to try and make it do what I want it to, and it's never going to do what you want it to do. But you're going to spend a bucket load of money and a bucket load of time trying to get it to do what you want it to do, and you end up in that sunk cost fallacy of just continuously trying to do the wrong thing. That I don't like. I'm not a big fan of that.
What's the messaging around that? Like, how do you communicate that out?
So that one can be a bit tougher, because again, it comes down to often political games, because it's who is in charge of those tools. But particularly for me in security, I'm like, if you are collecting this data and you are doing something with it from a security perspective, you are the ones who should be responsible for this tool. And not only that, you should be responsible for picking which tool it is. Okay. So if you want it to be that tool, that's fine. It's not going to work very well, but that's fine. But if you want to use something else, pick a tool that is going to do what you actually want it to do. Pick the right tool for the job. And that's not to say that you can't have a mixture of tools doing the same thing. Often you can get really good layering, and particularly for security, it's often good to have that layering. But at the same time, make sure that what you're using is fit for purpose, because otherwise it's a waste of time and energy trying to get it to do something that it was never designed to do in the first place.
So would you attribute that to maybe old school type mentality or bad habits kind of pre-Microsoft Sentinel for maybe security people that used other tools before migrating? Because I see that sometimes where literally you have organizations that literally want to collect everything. And while, yes, it's kind of nice to have all the files and logs from
I can do you one.
forever.
I've got one.
Right.
I've got one for you. Beautiful example of this one. I had a customer they'd turned on all the audits for Defender for Identity. And that's fine. You need to turn on all the right auditing stuff in your domain controllers. But they were literally grabbing everything from, and this is a multinational organization, everything from all of their domain controllers and ingesting it into Sentinel. Per month, they were ingesting $600,000 worth of 4663 events. An object was accessed.
Yeah,
that's great.
Bad.
That tells me nothing at all. Why are we grabbing hold of it? So having a chat to them in a combination of this data is useless. I don't know why we're getting hold of it. You might need some of it occasionally, but tune where you're getting it from and which bits you're actually interested in. And also from a cost optimization point of view, why are you spending that much money on an event ID that is pretty much pointless?
Yeah.
So they're the kind of fun conversations that I get to have a lot of the time. And that was an actual real customer. That was a conversation that I had with them going, do you realize how much money you are spending on this event ID? And they honestly didn't, because they'd never gone into it to realize exactly what went into their SIEM collection, what they were actually getting a hold of. So
yeah, I think I saw something very similar one time. I was doing a Sentinel workshop here in the United States, and they were collecting so much that it literally overwhelmed the data ingestion. And you're like, oh my goodness, why are you collecting this? And they said, well, just because we always have. That's just the way it's set up, you know.
I hate that phrase. It's the way we've always done it, so it's the way we're always going to do it. No, stop it. Stop doing it that way.
So where's your humor, Jess? You know, it's like a backhanded comment. Stop doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, just leave it alone. No, part of me is that, like, that's great, but that's the way you've always done it. But your environments were so much smaller, and they've grown, and the level of resources that we have now from a digital footprint perspective, like, we've got so much more. It has grown exponentially. You literally can't collect everything. If you do, you will drown in data and you won't be able to do anything with it. So you have to be choosy about the data you want to grab hold of. From a monitoring perspective, like, if you want to grab hold of that stuff, that's the other one that drives me nuts. Performance data in SIEMs. Why am I seeing performance metrics in my SIEMs? Put that somewhere else, pretty please. Right. Put that into another log analytics workspace. I don't want to see it to make it go away.
They literally enabled Sentinel on a log analytics workspace that was already collecting performance data, probably. Yeah.
And that's probably what it is. And they weren't even aware of it. So it's that making people aware of what they should be doing, because they don't know any better. It's not that they're willfully doing this just to be wasting money. It's that they don't know what they don't know. And that's a lot of what my job is they don't know what they don't know. And I'm here to help educate them on the bits that they don't know about.
And since Brody's not here, I'll attribute this to him. Maybe it's Microsoft's fault, because we make it too easy to do the wrong thing.
We do.
No.
We do.
I went to that point. Because I was on the tip of my tongue, and I want to ask you so desperately, but I'm wondering, again, having been on the other side of the equation, do you in your experience, do you feel like there's sometimes a bit of a barrier where you have to show up and say, listen, I am on behalf of Microsoft, but I'm not pushing a new thing for you to buy. I'm actually here to help
those exact
you have to say it explicitly.
No,
you have to.
No, I will state that explicitly. I'm like, look. Yeah. I am a security CSA. That is my job. I'm not here to sell you anything. You've already paid for this stuff. I'm here to make sure that you are using the stuff you've paid for, and if possible, save you money. Like, actually make it so you're paying less. Like, that's part of my job. So, but I'm also very aware of, sometimes I will wear what I refer to as my hats. So I've got my Microsoft hat that I will wear. And then occasionally I will need to take my Microsoft hat off and put on my recovering sysadmin hat and tell them stuff with my recovering sysadmin hat on in regards to stuff, So that, but I think that also humanizes it. They kind of then
Absolutely.
realize that you are a human. You are not part of the Microsoft Borg.
Machine, yes, yeah. Okay, yeah, but futile, yeah, resistance is futile. We're going to be assimilated. I love it all, Jess. I'm already, whatever religion you want to start, I'm going to be your number one disciple. I'm there. I was on the sysadmin side. Okay, so you have to share that with them, articulate it very clearly, and that's how you start building your trust, right? Because otherwise, they're just not going to. They're going to be, oh, another Microsoft suit is here. Somebody from the big machine.
I don't know if you can tell, I don't really fit the mold of a suit. I'm a little bit more down to earth, I would hope. And being an Australian, we are a little bit more relaxed. I would think. I always like it when I get to deal with some customers and they're the ones who drop the first profanities.
Yes, that I'm like, oh, I can be myself. I'm a New Yorker, not an Australian, but yes, similar. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's that building up that I have been in your shoes. I am here to help you. And I think the other really big one, and I really like talking to my customers in regards to it this way. I'm like, I have been exactly where you are right now, and I have been screaming until I am blue in the face to get something done. And they do not pay attention to me, even as the SME in my organization. What is it that you need me as this external person who's come in from this big organization that your company is going to listen to say to your management to get them to pay attention? What have you been screaming about from a security perspective that you need my assistance with? And that really helps as well, because a lot of the time it is the basic stuff. It's, we need MFA for everyone. Can we please get rid of our password change requirements?
Yes.
Make them go away. It's things like that. It's the little things that they've just been trying to push through for so long that no one's been listening to until they get someone outside to say it, which is really annoying.
Was that part of the impetus for joining Microsoft? Because I can share what you just expressed. Like, I wanted to join the mothership because I was like, why does this work this way and that works that way? And we need to make it easier for customers. And instead of handling it on the micro level, I wanted to be like on the global scale. I wanted to be directly, well, I want the home base, right? And make that impact like at the macro level.
Mine was a little bit weirder. So I kind of hit the peak of where I could get to where I was previously working in government, and there was nowhere else for me to go, really. Like, I had nowhere technically for me to go. And so my issue was, right, I've hit the technical peak that I can get to here. Where can I go next where I can actually use this information that I've got? Because before I joined Microsoft, I'm one of those cool ones who was an MVP before coming across. So it was great. I was an MVP, and then I lost my MVP. That was so sad. I was very proud of it. I loved my crystal. But I was speaking on Active Directory security and doing that kind of stuff, and writing posts about it and talking about it extensively on Twitter. I refuse to call it anything else. So it's that I wanted to be able to educate more people, and I couldn't do that in the role that I was in. So that's kind of why I came across.
Yeah, that's very good. So if you had maybe one last kind of item to talk about so we talked about identity, we talked about the SIEM or SIM. Now
I'm SIEM now. I've converted. It's SIEM forever will be.
So I heard it was because it was two products eventually, and they combined them. There was an SIM and there was an SEM, and then when they combined them, it became SIEM because it was SIM, and anyway, that's what I heard. But anyway, from the identity perspective, what is the one thing that you could, if you could tell customers, all of them right now, just shake it into them, what it is that they need to be able to do? Is it MFA? Is it something else? Or is it just literally
MFA.
Just pay attention to it?
It's MFA. If there's one thing that I could get all of the customers that I deal with every day to just do is get MFA for everyone. It's not it should only be these people or a subset or the administrators. It's everyone, because, and it's the statistic that we throw out, and I love that it's not made up. 99.9% of identity-based attacks can be prevented with MFA. Like, if we can prevent almost all of them, why are we not doing it?
Right. Yeah.
Why is this not our top thing? So that would be my big thing. Yes.
Yeah, we're at Microsoft. We're kind of on this path to MFA everything. The Azure portal, all of our tools, all of the web-based access to a lot of our tools. It's all going to be MFA, and I don't know. Have customers said anything about that? They think, oh, this is great, or oh my goodness, this just
A
ruins
mixture.
my day.
A
mixture.
mixture.
Yeah.
And I've got to admit, like, I find it very frustrating for me as well. I'm like, all of these new, in regards to SFI, Secure Future Initiative, and the fact that we are pushing a lot of this security first. Some of the stuff that's been happening has been really frustrating for me. So it's kind of interesting to be on the other side of it, almost as an end user. But then it's that remembering that this is for a good reason, that there is a good reason behind why we are doing this. I think being on the end user side of it internally inside Microsoft has been able to assist me when I'm dealing with my customers to say, look, you need to educate your users, not just on the what is happening, but the why. If they know the why, they are going to be far more likely to accept any of the crap that they have to go through in order to access their systems. Okay. So making sure that you're doing it in a way that it's not just the what's going to be happening, but the why behind it. The why is so important.
So I love this. I'm going to show this here real quick while we're still here. Let's see how this works without an extra screen while I'm looking at things. Microsoft Edge tabs. Oh, there it is. Here we
What
go.
could possibly go wrong?
I like this. Can you see that? I think that looks pretty awesome. So Jess just shared this. Everything that we've been talking about, she has
Yes,
consolidated
ramblings of a
into
female
a blog post. Look at that. Look at that. So we'll share that, put that in the show notes as well. I also do that just so everyone is aware that she does have her own blog. So we'll share that as well. But that's awesome. There's everything we've been talking about. You can go through and pick the things that how's it go, Ray? Opportunity for instead of doing it
Opportunities for
wrong.
improvement.
Oh,
Opportunity for
yeah,
improvement. Yeah.
growth
Okay.
areas or opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ray, did you have anything else?
Just let me know just when you start your guild. I just want to submit my application for review. I would love to know the background for GirlGerms though. I like
Yeah.
what does that name represent?
Oh, I've got a blog post on that as to where that came from.
Oh, cool.
That was in regards to the very TLDR version is when I first started in IT. I was put in my own OU inside Active Directory, and it was called GirlGerms because I was the only girl on the team.
You named it?
I didn't. Someone else did.
But as it like an inside joke that you were inside, you were in
Oh
on?
no,
or
I was not in. I was not in.
Oh,
on it
so
at the
you
time.
own? Yes.
So I
Alright,
owned
so
it. I'm like, no,
yes.
right. I'm going to be GirlGerms then. That's just the way it's going to be.
I want to be lucky enough to get some GirlGerms too. Okay, because that's amazing. You're amazing, Jess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. We're kind of at the end of the show, I believe. But Jess, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, I've been really super excited about this episode, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we were able to kind of arrange it and do it at a time that worked for you. So
thank you very much for having me along. I'm sorry I'm not in Chicago. I would have totally been sitting there as well. It would have been very fun. But yes, maybe next year I'll make it to Ignite. Maybe.
Let's plan on that. Let's plan this same show next year. You'll be with us, and we'll all do it together in person. Maybe Edward will be here. Maybe Brody can figure out how to rearrange his flights more
Leave him
appropriately.
alone.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to thank all of our listeners and our audience members. Thank you so much, as always, for your continued loyalty to this show, and the show continues to grow, and we absolutely love it. Next week we have another guest on. Who is that? Brandon Nolan from Oxford Computer Group. I think that was an Edward thing, right? Ray, am I correct in thinking that that's an Edward guest? Maybe. And he's not even going to be here next week because I think he's traveling
New Zealand
next week. So won't see Edward again next week, unfortunately. But our audience should also stay tuned because our annual holiday episode is coming up. We'll have more to share about that here shortly. So again, thank you, Jess, and thank you, Ray, and thank you to our audience. We actually promoted this here at Ignite today, and I'm watching the numbers. We have a lot of live listeners this time, and that's awesome. So we will talk to you next week. Thank you, everyone.
Shout out to Rod's wife. She's amazing. Rod, shout out to your wife.
I love my wife. She's the best.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jess.
All right.
Thank you,
everyone.